Let's Chat About It is a thought-provoking podcast where your hosts Lenora Sneva and Max Brown engage in meaningful conversations with everyday individuals about the pivotal moments when they realized they were different. Tune in every Friday for fresh, inspiring videos that delve into personal narratives exploring the diverse journeys of self-discovery. From childhood revelations to adulthood epiphanies, each episode is a celebration of the diverse paths that shape our identities. This is more than just a podcast. It's a platform inviting you to connect with others through storytelling.
All right, welcome back to Let's Chat About It. My name's Lenora Sneva. I'm with Max Brown. Today we have Eric, who is he's a life coach. He's an author, all the things. Before he comes in, Max.
And at least from what I've seen, a very well-dressed man as well.
He is well-dressed. So I'm wearing my suit today.
Yeah, I'm just gonna slum it. I'm not even gonna try.
I had a scarf on too, but it's too hot. I can't do all that. He's gonna have a scarf on. He's gonna come.
My little closet gets hot. My office gets really hot. There's not a whole lot of airflow going on in here. So
no. So what's our question for the week?
So I was thinking about it. We now, the two of us, live in two very different climates. But my question is specific to kind of I saw some Facebook posts. I'm not on Facebook. I just stalk people. Like I have it so that like for marketplace.
You can admit it. Go ahead.
It's a problem. But it looked like there might have been a little bit of snow in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
stopped, but it's been
it happened. But it happened. And my question is, what is your opinion about snow?
As long as I'm home with a warm beverage and a blanket,
chai tea,
right? I'm good. But I don't really want to drive in it, and I'm not gonna go play in it. Sorry.
Oh man.
But you got kids, Georgia. You don't have a choice.
Oh, love playing. I love driving in the snow.
Really?
I think there's something really like sort of magical about like when there's snow coming down at night and you're driving and the snowflakes are kind of like arcing at your window. It's pretty cool.
It is very special.
And I thankfully my dad's from the Midwest, so he was very good at he's very familiar, grew up driving in the snow, so taught me how to drive in the snow. So I feel pretty comfortable driving in the snow. Haven't gotten in a wreck, thankfully. But the kids love playing in it, and it ain't happening here. Like we're gonna have to drive someplace to make it happen. There's mountains, quote unquote mountains in the area, but there's some large hills. But I think we can go up to. There's parts of the area. It's going to be a drive, but I think we could find snow if we were in a pinch.
Yeah, or you could just come home.
Stay home.
Come home. Back
We'll be there in July. We'll have to figure out, maybe we'll do like a live podcast or something.
There's not going to be any snow in July, but yeah.
No, but we could have, for all of our listeners, all 6 of us, we could all get together and host a live show.
And, that'd be fun.
That'd be fun. I mean, that would be actually, now that I say this might come to fruition.
That's what I'm saying. We got to go live. We're going to do it.
No, I mean, but like we could have people in house. Like we could do,
although like live like that.
Like live studio audience.
Okay.
You know, maybe that's how we'll start the Patreon for all of our paid subscribers.
There we go. There's an idea. All right. Well, let's bring Eric in. I see him. Let's meet Eric. So welcome back to Let's Chat About It. We have Eric here. Eric, tell us about yourself. Who are you? What's going on with you?
I am Eric Russell, and where do we begin? Let me just tell you a little bit about what I do for those people who are social media types. I run a social media page on Instagram called Growth Through Adversity Coaching, and the focus of that work is to help people through their lives when life goes sideways, when life goes wrong, when life goes astray. And that's simply going to happen for all of us. So my work is really to provide people with an understanding of what's happening, how to navigate that process, and to come out the other side whole.
I love it.
I'll give you a little bit about background as to what I do.
That's so
Eric,
cool.
like, can I get a little bit of background too on who is Eric Russell that brought you to this place of your coaching journey?
Oh my gosh. So that's a great question too. So the coaching journey is a fascinating one. I've had a long career, not just in coaching, but also in financial services. But the actual person that got me to this place is a person who has himself been through a wide variety of personal life challenges, of hard things that have happened to me, of experiences and upbringing that have not been smooth by any stretch of the imagination. And that has enabled me to become a person who has, I don't want to say it, I'll say it this way, that has probably learned a thing or two about how life can knock you around
Mm-hmm.
and how important it is for us to be able to find our way through those types of experiences because we can.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that background, Max, is growing up in Philadelphia, where I grew up. Well, I was one of 7 kids. We grew up in an interesting family that had a wide variety of experiences. We were a musical family. My father was an opera singer. My mother was a concert pianist. In a lot of ways, my parents were firsts in so many ways. My mother was the first college-educated woman in her family, which really required so much of her ability to navigate a predominantly all-white girls' school in Philadelphia. My father was was one of 6 uh, people who looked like him at the University of Pennsylvania. He graduated from there in 1954. So imagine starting that in
Wow.
1950.
How many people? There was how many Black people there?
6.
6? Oh,
How
man.
many? And I'm assuming like thousands of students here at the
Oh.
University of Pennsylvania. Do you know how big of a university it was at that time?
Probably at that point in time, I would probably suggest it was maybe around 2,500 students for
Okay.
undergrads. That's what I would imagine.
Wow.
But he was one of 6 there. And you can imagine what it really took to be able to be in those types of environments and be able to come out on the other side whole, well focused, able to traverse so much adversity that they faced. I'll give you just one quick, interesting story. My father was a agricultural chemist. That's what he got his degree in. And when he got his very first job out of college at the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Philadelphia, and I think that they were doing at that point in time just hiring the brightest kids and come on board, we're good. So when my dad showed up for work, it was a very interesting conversation because they weren't expecting him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was an
Or his
adjustment.
coworkers weren't expecting him, but maybe his boss was, because his boss hired him, right? Or did they just kind of?
I'm not sure, but my friend
Okay.
tells the
It
story.
was a Zoom. It was a Zoom meeting, Lenora.
Oh,
Just as my dad tells the story, it was a little bit of a surprise when my
Yeah.
dad showed up. And, you know, when you endure things such as that, and they are part of the way that you have to not just prepare yourself to be in the world, but part of how you prepare your kids to be in the world. And that you have to understand that there will be these forces, factors, and other situations that may not necessarily be in your favor. And then how do you manage those things as you go forward? Yeah, a little bit of background about me in terms of some of the things that I have had to, that have helped me to be who I am today.
So, can you tell us your story? What happened? Where were you at when you first knew you were different? What was happening for you?
So, great question. Thank you very much. You know, for me, and I don't know if this is true for you or for Max or for anyone else, but I think that the reason I knew I was different, or maybe I didn't know I was different, maybe from my standpoint, it was how other people responded and reacted to me that
Yeah.
gave me a sense of I was other.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily family members, because we were a tight little unit of the 9 of us, 7 kids and my 2 parents.
Eric,
But
you just for the record, you just called your little unit of 9. I'm just making sure. Okay, all right.
All in
our
perspective.
all but our little unit of 9, my sense is that we were okay there. Although I have to admit that there are parts of our little unit of 9, an aspect of us that I didn't find in other families. As I mentioned before, my father was an opera singer, turned into an opera singer. My mother was a concert pianist, and that we were all musical. We all played instruments. I was a French hornist, which back in those days, to find a French hornist who was a descendant of the enslaved or of African descent was incredibly rare to find.
Right.
So we were, as a family, somewhat unique.
Yeah.
Because we
Definitely.
were all musical. But I think that for me, some of my earliest experiences and ongoing experiences were probably in school, where my peers didn't necessarily include me.
Mm-hmm.
And I generally found myself on the outside looking in. And that was one of the ways in which there was a developing understanding that, I'm not part of them.
Right.
And it's fascinating how that understanding formed for me in those days, has helped carry me forward over these almost 64 years of life, and how it has been both helpful and not helpful to have that sort of understanding that you may not necessarily be part of the in crowd, but that's okay. So I think that's how I began to learn that I was not like everybody else.
How did you deal with it? What was your method of kind of being okay with it or addressing it, if you did at all?
So I'm wondering if I took an other approach to actually doing that. And that is that, and I had an interesting conversation with my father about this. We were talking, my dad, who's 91, turning 92.
Wow. Okay.
We had this conversation around the kind of stuff that we are, and about the approach, if you will, that I know my parents had to take, and my father often talks about, that got him through University of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this sense of understanding of, despite the fact that these odds might be stacked against me, or I might be in a place where I certainly feel that I am not part of this group, I'm going to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And my sense is that that was part of how all of us, all 7 of us kids, were raised, was to have this sort of mindset, if you will, that says, I may not be included and I may not be part of you guys, but you know what? I'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna move forward. I'm not leaving.
Absolutely. And I like to say this. I remember when I was maybe in the 6th grade or maybe the 5th grade. I remember maybe in the 7th grade, maybe even earlier, but somewhere in my elementary school years, I remember saying to myself, about my peers, you may not like me, but in the end, you will respect me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
I was
That's a
thinking,
pretty mature thing to say.
pardon?
That's a pretty mature thing to say in grade school.
You know, some might call it mature. Gabor Mate might look at that and say, that's the voice of trauma speaking.
Well, there's that.
Yes.
Eric, you'd mentioned, and we get to cheat because we got kind of like a part 1 with Eric that we were kind of revisiting. But one of the things I found kind of interesting, Eric, is you had mentioned you wear glasses, and that's a little bit as well a part of the story of you, kind of, at least from if I recall correctly, of you growing up in sort of you didn't have a crowd to necessarily fit in. Want to share a little bit about that in when you were growing up?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Max, too. Um, I don't know how many of you or Lorraine or anybody has had this experience, but when I was a kid growing up, when you can't see clearly, you don't realize you can't see clearly. And I had made it almost all the way through, I don't know, fourth or fifth grade, not being able to see, really.
Oh,
And I used to love to read. So I would sit in my bed underneath
oh,
the sheet because I shared my room with my brother. You too, with the
your
sheet over
flashlight?
with a flashlight,
Yeah.
reading all the time. I got real nearsighted. And as my vision really declined, so did my academic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that became very obvious when I got to the sixth grade was that I could not see the board at all. There
Oh,
was no
wow.
at
Yeah.
all. To this day, I can't do fractions because they taught in the sixth grade. So I had these educational experiences, and I probably want to say going back, and I don't know how I made it through the sixth grade, but probably going back to the fourth grade, I remember, maybe third grade, even earlier than that. But I remember being put into I was in the slow group.
Mm-hmm.
We're out in I don't know whether you guys had portables, but we had
Mhm.
portables.
Oh, yeah.
Philadelphia, the portables. I was out in the portables with the other slow kids there. I think there were 3 or 4 of us, and they don't really teach you anything because you're slow.
Oh,
So, there I was with much of the known world to me having given up on me, but there I sat. And then one day, because back in those days in public school, they do eye exams, they do hearing tests and things of that nature. At least back in the day, they used to.
mm-hmm.
And I remember I had to take a note home, got a note home, took it home, and my mom looked at it, showed it to my dad, and it was like, I think the note said, Eric can't read. He can't see the board.
Oh,
Eric
Yeah.
is pretty blind.
oh,
And these are readers, but my real glasses, they're the Coke bottle situation because I just can't see at all.
Yeah.
So that experience, though, when I think about it, was also defining for me because it provided a reason why I had struggled through school at that
right.
point. But it also gave new hope to being
Mm-hmm.
able to be, with the ability to see, to be able to do better and to be able to actually potentially catch up at that point in time. But it was interesting. If you've ever, do either of you wear glasses?
Thankfully, no. I
No.
I
never
do
should.
sometimes.
Lenore likes to accessorize. Let's be honest. Like Lenore's got she has a
I
lot
do.
of pairs of glasses that she
I
will
do,
just,
but I do need them though. Yeah, sometimes.
Sorry,
she rocks them well. She rocks them well.
I love it. You've got a face for glasses there.
Oh, thanks.
I
And I've
remember.
got a face for a podcast.
Whatever.
Well, Eric, I think it's time to throw out the humble brag though, Eric, which is so you may have started off quote unquote in the slow class. Where'd you graduate from college?
I did. I went to a venerable Ivy League school in Providence, Rhode Island, called Brown University, and it was quite the educational opportunity. And yes, I made up ground, and I'm delighted to be able to say that. But I also think that that's one of the reasons why people who are different, if you will, get to be themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they end up charting their own pathway through the world, which takes them in places that maybe weren't initially thought of for them, and or they may not have thought of originally for themselves, but because they may not fit the profile or the mold or the path that might be designed for everybody else, they find their way there. They get it done. So yeah, it was.
I like what you're saying. You know what? When you were talking, it kind of reminded me of like, when in high school, even middle school, everybody you kind of want to be like everybody else. You don't want to stick out. And then some of us just do, right? Because of the way we look or our glasses or our
Kids are loud and
size,
obnoxious.
right? Yeah, our mouth. But but for you, I don't know. Maybe I'm making a generalization, but it seems like the kids that kind of stick together and they want to be like each other, they tend to probably go, maybe they kind of stay local for school. They might not go, and if they go out of state, they go where everyone else is going. And what I hear you saying also is like, because you were othered, you took risks, because it's like, well, you know what I mean? I've been through some stuff
Yeah.
already, and why not do something different? I mean, you say I'm
Yeah.
different, so let me do something totally different. Let me go to a school outside of where I'm living and experience life a little bit differently and grow and learn. I don't know. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you say, which is really cool.
I couldn't agree with that more. And you said something really true, particularly if there are kids that are going to tune into this podcast. So when I say kids, I'm talking about high schoolers,
Yeah.
which is, there is a sense almost of safety, right? In number.
Mm-hmm.
There is almost a sense of, I'm okay because my group tells me that I'm okay.
Exactly. Yes.
So, when you have to experience life apart from the group, you develop your own way of saying that I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And you develop your own way of measuring that, of determining that, and confirming that in yourself. And it's not necessarily dependent upon other people. I was, I'm in my work, I'm doing work on failure, if you will. So I've got these formulation of these rules in dealing with failure, or approaches and steps one needs to take. One is that I'm going to fail.
Mhm.
I will learn from it. It will make me better.
I love it.
Okay. The third rule around failure is, this is interesting because it has to do exactly with the question that you just asked and talked about others, particularly teenagers, which is, my dignity is not determined by others' opinions of me.
Hmm.
I know who I am, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
My
I think
dignity. And you notice I was very specific about, I could have said myself, my person, my identity. My dignity,
My dignity.
not determined by the opinions of others. I know who I am. Because when we think about it, it's about dignity. It's about your own sense of what you think about yourself and how
Mhm.
you look at yourself and how you esteem yourself. Not self-esteem, but how you esteem yourself. My sense of how I carry myself in a room among others, my presence, my carriage, because I know who I am. And it's not determined it's not determined by how people look at me. Do they look at me funny? Do they look at me different, odd, whatever? I'm good because I know who I am.
Yeah.
And that grows not from being dependent upon the clique, the crowd, the others, the group, my friends, etc., for my sense of self. Because I'm good, I'm okay. But it comes from being able to understand that you're going to be fine with or without them.
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to develop on your
Mhm.
own. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, I appreciate Eric. I think what you said at the beginning of this conversation was it's not so much that you felt like the moment you felt different, but it really is that term of othering. When it's more when other people create that situation where you don't feel like you are allowed to fit in. And to me, I think that's the hard part about the truth that you just shared is when you're young, people are going to try to other you, and it's hard to know who you truly are. It takes your comment of, I may not, you may not accept me for who I am, but you're going to respect me for who I am. Those are bold statements, and I think Lenora hit the nail on the head. Mature statements for somebody of a young age.
Yeah.
That's not where I was at. And I think that's what led, I felt othered pretty early on in my life and didn't have a real clear sense of who I was, and allowed those peers to define who I was. And I think that leads to a lot of the challenges that we kind of then cling to where can I find acceptance from a group? How do I find my self-worth and dignity and identity from other people? How do I be, which is probably, well, Lenore, you're getting the therapy sessions, which is why my spirit animal is a golden retriever. I'm looking for praise and snacks all the time because I need to make sure that people,
Mostly snacks.
I mean, mostly or carbonated water, and those are the things that I do because of what I've experienced and wanting to fit in. But I think there's something beautiful about being able to say, I don't have to. I don't need affirmation or to be determined by who you say that I am. But I have this. In some ways, it's beautiful to be othered because it helps you to define if you can do it in a healthy and supportive way. And I think it probably helps me have a pretty tight family to be able to work through those things.
Yeah.
And get out on the other end is maybe with fewer, not without any, but fewer scars through that process.
Well, here's the thing, Max. We've been talking about being othered, but we didn't call it what it actually is. It's adversity. It's adversity. And when you have been able to face down adversity and be in adversity and be able to come out the other side of it, you develop a different sense of self. And the challenge that we find with that group think is the group is safe.
Exactly.
It keeps you from.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable, right? Yeah. So one of the things I always say in my work is that, and you've heard this statement said many times, which is that life begins or whatever happens at the end of your comfort zone. That's not true. And I want everyone who hears my words to say that that's not true, because there is no such thing as a comfort zone, but there's a safety zone. We stay within the safety zone. Yeah. We do not extend outside of that because you can get hurt out there. Comfort zones are fine, but it's the safety zone that we stay within. However, your growth occurs when you are in a place where new skills are required, new abilities emerge, new approaches have to be taken, a new sense of self has to be developed because you're out of your existing resources. So what do you do then? Then growth happens. Otherwise, it's nothing but stretching of what already exists. I can do that. I just need to exert a little harder. That doesn't make you different. What makes you different is real adversity, where you're forced to other resource yourself to get there. And I always talk about it's the resourcing. The reason why it's hard, just remember the statement, the reason why it's hard is because you don't have the resources yet to make it easy. You just haven't been there before. So it requires something new.
Yeah.
So for kids, as long as they stay safe in that group, they will never or rarely develop a sense of their own individuality or their own sense of identity or that type of inner fortitude or strength, because it's never been required of them. And this is why in many indigenous traditions, particularly let's talk about First Nations traditions, the vision quest is required. You get the spirit. I was reminding you of the spirit animal. You find your spirit animal out there in the desert or in the wilderness by yourself for a month or week or whatever, finding your way. You develop you in those environments.
I listened to this. You're reminding me of something else I heard today, Eric, which was, I guess I have like a really, really small family because we're only 6. I mean, we're not a little 9. But I was listening to this author today talking about a study that was done, a research study that had been done about how to help children have a growth mindset. And then Lenora's like, her antenna just went up. And she's like, and one of the things that this study showed was they had basically 3 groups. One group, they were given, basically this would be like they would take a test, some kind of academic exercise. One group had praise that was specific to like you're smart, you're gifted, you're good at this. Like that was one group of praise. The other praise was about effort. So you were, even though you didn't get it right, you were persistent. You worked through it. You worked hard. And then there was kind of a third control group that they didn't really necessarily do anything. And what they found was the group that had the greatest growth mindset was the group that was specific to effort. And the group that actually had the praise regarding you're smart, you're talented, didn't, because essentially every kid is looking for praise. And when the praise comes from doing well, you're less likely to take risks because you're not sure that you can actually accomplish them, and therefore you won't get the praise. Whereas if you are praised for your effort or putting yourself in a situation where you have to find new resources, you actually grow. And so that when the two groups were presented kind of easier and harder questions, the kids who were told they were really smart took the easy questions more often. And the kids who were told they had great effort and were persistent chose the harder questions more often. And I thought it's a fascinating way to think about, like, it's something that we don't like, but I mean, I remember for me, when I became a homeowner, I could strip every single screw in my house with a drill. I was fantastic at it. And then we were broke and we needed to remodel a bathroom because it was literally pipes were exposed. And guess who remodeled a bathroom after not being able to use a drill? Because you're to your point, forced into a situation of othering where there's no resources around me. You've got to figure this out on your own. And it is challenging. But today, now that I have those resources, it's no longer hard. Yes. It takes time, takes effort, but it's no longer hard in the same way that it used to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's really, those are just really tangible, helpful thoughts.
Hard because resources yet to make it easy.
I think it's that's a very good parenting advice. I think it's easy for parents to want things to be easy for their kids. And so because of that, we're not going to move. We're going to stay in the house that we've lived in for, we're just going to stay here.
We're not going to move across the country.
No, we're not. We're going to stay in this neighborhood. And so I think I'm just going to give myself a pat on the back for letting my daughter go to 4 different high schools right now. Sorry, Lainey. Maybe it was 3. I can't remember now. But anyway. Yeah, right. Just a little diversity, right? You
still Ivy League. You're good.
So Eric, I feel like when we were talking to you before, you said something about angels, and I wanted you, if you could remember that conversation, and if you could share a little bit more about that. Because I don't know, we didn't really finish that part of the conversation, but I would love to.
One of us got to.
Oh yeah. So I want to contextualize the issue of angels to life, and us being able to respond with a degree of fortitude and understanding. So I'm going to contextualize it to ancestors and ancestry. So in my ancestors, who are the Fulani people in Central West Africa between present-day Niger and Nigeria, when those ancestors were initially kidnapped and brought to the U.S., as with all of the enslaved Africans come from an interesting spiritual tradition in which there is a deep and abiding belief in a creative energy from which all things come. And that creative energy, spirit, is in all things at all times and is everywhere, in the trees, the rocks, the rivers, etc. This isn't just true for African traditions, but it's true for a lot of indigenous traditions. So when these ancestors were able to survive things like the Middle Passage and continue to be, and the word to be means to exist, we have to understand that for people to be able to do that, it requires more than just physical fortitude. There's got to be something else.
Right.
Enables a person, people, to be able to endure what is unendurable. And my sense is that that was because of a deep and abiding sense in something more than them. And in African tradition, the ancestors are always present, always available for help, guidance, wisdom, and strength. And I believe that that was part of what was the inspiration of so many, or at least my ancestors, to continue to exist, which is why I'm here today. Because otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
But the ancestors were hard to kill, as I like to say. Part of the reason why they were hard to kill is because they had a foundation that was based upon a belief in something more that was inspirational to them personally and helped to build a type of inner fortitude that enabled them to, again, to continue to exist. Now, I know that I have had my own personal encounters of and from that realm, from experiences. I spoke of one, but I'll talk about a different one this time. I was a college kid home for break my sophomore year of college, and I was working for a publishing company selling dictionaries, business to business. You know those door-to-door salespeople?
You're selling dictionaries to business?
I sold dictionaries.
So random. Okay. Because you couldn't get them on the internet because there's no internet. So
there was no internet back in the 1979. No internet didn't exist back in
Take that, Jeff Bezos.
Right?
I was selling dictionaries. So I was in Philadelphia downtown, home on break, summer break. And I was on 2 one-way streets. One-way street going left to right. It's lunchtime. I had to get some stuff copied. So that meant, because people didn't have copy machines in their offices, you had to go to a copy place. This is 1979. So I feel like I might as well be saying it's 1922.
It wasn't Kinko's either, was it?
Pardon?
Was Kinko's around yet? No, I don't know.
I'm not sure. Anyway, so I got stuff to copy. I had to take it down to copy machine. So I'm standing on the corner, one-way street left to right. And then on the corner, it was one-way street going this way, that way, front to back. So the light, a bunch of people all in the corner, business people, lunchtime, everybody trying to get lunch, trying to get where we're getting to. And the light turned green for all of us to walk. And I was in a hurry because I didn't want to be late, because I didn't want to get fired, you know, that kind of thing. So I step off the sidewalk in a hurry, and I take 2 steps. So the average stride length is what, 3 feet or so, especially if you're in a hurry, 2.5, 3 feet. So I was anywhere between 4 to 6 feet off the sidewalk, probably somewhere around 4 feet off the sidewalk. And all of a sudden, I heard this really, just like this. This was the voice. See if you can, tell me if you can hear it. This was it. Jump.
Oh my gosh.
That was the only word said. Just like that. Jump. And, you know, I was like, okay, up we go. So I jumped. I was back on the sidewalk, and a gold-colored car screeched to a halt. Front bumper there. I was in the middle of the front wheel well opposite me, and it was just on the other side of me in the street.
Oh my gosh.
Now the question is, and the people are standing around me go like this.
Right? Because they saw it.
The question was, how did I get back on the sidewalk?
Because did you jump backwards? Did you jump backwards or you jump?
You tell me.
You just jumped.
On the sidewalk. And why am I here having this conversation with you right now?
More pointedly, can you take a moment here? Who can jump like you said, 5 to 6 feet backwards? Like, that's not easy.
All the word was all the thing I ever heard was jump. That was.
Did anyone? Okay, hold on. This is so interesting. Did you talk to anyone afterwards? Like,
no,
because
they had to get to lunch.
Nope. The car took off. I had to get stuff copied. I was gone, off like a shot.
Wow.
Did you, in that moment, when did you process it? When did you? Yeah, did it take a minute?
Yeah, afterwards, after I got everything copied and came back, I was like, wow, I'm glad I didn't get hit by a car.
Like selling dictionaries.
You don't think about it in that moment. You just think, gee, I'm glad I didn't get hit by that car. But you don't actually process what actually took place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I talk about it today in terms of those types of interactions with a realm or dimension, angels, call it whatever, And knowing from personal experience, these are things that have actually occurred in my life to me, with me.
Yep.
So I know that these things are real, because how else do you explain that?
You can't explain it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't explain it. This is like this. So we did a podcast the other day with someone that we'll be posting that one soon, and she had some kind of similar like she was kind of saying the same thing. Like she definitely believes in angels and ghosts, and has had some people that have passed away, and all of a sudden they were there, and she didn't even know they had died yet. And it was my niece, the same thing. My brother passed in July, and he came to see her a couple days, I think maybe even the same day he passed, he came to see her, and he said, I'm okay. You don't need to cry. I'm okay. I'm with grandma.
I have, I always talk, not always, but that does not surprise me, because I know that people who I have been related to, and others who have related those stories of people who have departed, they come and do, I'm just going to call it, they do their victory lap.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
who just need to know that
Doing all right.
I'm gone.
I'm good, though. I'm good.
All's good.
Oh,
all right. Well, Eric, we could be on the phone with you for another hour. Thank you so much for joining us. Usually when we end, we always ask, is there anything that you would say, Eric, to the younger Eric, to encourage him, to let him know? But I feel like you were already encouraging yourself, even in 6th grade. But is there anything else you'd say to him or to anyone kind of going through what you went through?
Yeah, I would definitely say this. Even if you're not going through what I went through, I think that the biggest point of growth that I think all of us are faced with is the ability to actually and absolutely love ourselves, and accept ourselves as we are. I think that is probably the number one message I would leave with everyone, is that you got to be able to love yourself, and you got to be able to, more importantly, accept yourself as is. And I've been doing a series of work through on my Instagram page on this specific issue, having to do with the quote inner critic, which doesn't exist. Have I told you there's no such thing as the inner critic? It does not exist.
Okay.
And around failure, but that how important it is for the younger Eric to have been able to really love and accept himself as is, a real lesson that he actually learned when he was 59. So I would get that in as early as possible.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Eric. It was so nice to see you again. Please take care, and please come back to the show.
Oh, wait, we got one last thing to plug, right? Eric, you're working on a book, right?
Got a book coming out, What to Do When Life Falls Apart. I think that's what the working title is at this point in time. It's going to be a series of processes that you have to go through in order to get out from this thing happened to my life is okay. It takes you through the 6 steps that I talk about in that process, from reaction all the way through to resolution, getting those things done. And it's largely based on a lot of African wisdom, therapy, understanding our physiology, beginning with when something happens, how your brain and body are reacting to that, and why that's so unreliable, and then what we do because of that and what we need to do. And it takes you all the way through to processes such as reconciliation, where I take what has happened and I'm able to reconcile that with my life right now and what has to happen on a go forward basis, which is completely different from the 3 earlier steps. And it's a totally different place to be. So that book should be coming out hopefully sometime this summer. And for people who want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at Growth Through Adversity Coaching, all one word, Growth Through Adversity Coaching, or you can find me on my website, which is ericowenrussell.com. That's ERIC Owen, OWEN, Russell, RUSSELL, two S's, two L's.com. You can find me there. Look my stuff up, follow me on Instagram.
Yes.
Great free stuff that's there for people to take down in terms of things that'll be helpful. Come coach with me, and guarantee you I will help you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, that was Eric. Oh my goodness. We have to have him back on. That was so amazing. I got so much out of that.
I'll be honest, like there's rare, I don't think I've ever had anybody who I'm like, yeah, we don't need to talk to them again. Every week, these are hard to do in 20 to 30 minutes. It's
I know.
there's just so
Well, this
much,
was a longer one, so that was really good advice.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna have my daughters both watch it.
There you go. Hey, we gotta take it in ourselves too. No, it's interesting too, like who, I won't name names, but like who pops in your head when you have some of these podcasts and you're like, man, that's a conversation maybe I've been wanting to have, or I'm not really sure if I have the tools to have. But sometimes I lead these conversations and it's like, okay, I've come away with a new set of skills or tools or way of thinking or approaching something that I've wanted to and been kind of intimidated by.
Yeah.
And I feel energized to go have a conversation, or maybe it's just even saying like, hey, you should listen to this person and see what they have to say, because it might be beneficial for you. So
yeah, this is a good one to share around for sure. So
yes, like, subscribe, all the things.
Yeah,
tell your mother-in-law. I'm just saying, like, that's how broad you gotta, right. if you love anybody, you gotta love your mother-in-law. So go send it to your mother-in-law.
Barb's always listening. She's our number one fan, so she's
working on the merch.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody, we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
The Let's Chat About It video podcast, produced and edited by Lenora Sneva, invites listeners to share their stories. To participate, email letschatnow1010@gmail.com. New episodes featuring people like you and me are released every Friday. Thank you for listening and being a part of a community who cares. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. Thanks for listening.